Directions for your silhouette city. Name and teacher code on the back. To begin, we'll use black and white oil pastels to add our swirls to create that movement in our sky. Start with black because it's definitely much easier to see. And basically, you're creating a circle that just keeps going and going and growing larger. Create some interest by having your swirls go off the edge of your paper by starting and stopping your lines. Create lots of different size swirls and fill up your paper, leaving a little bit of room for your white swirls that you'll add second. When you go to add your white swirls, it's important to be careful not to touch the black swirls that are on your paper, but still hold your paper securely. You just don't want to end up with extra fingerprints. If you lean kind of to the side and look, you'll be able to see your white swirls much easier than if you're looking at them directly straight down like the camera is for this demonstration. So fill up the empty spaces with a variety of different size white swirls, similar to your black swirls. Make sure that you're using a good amount of pressure when you're adding your white swirls, especially because when you add paint, when they reappear, they won't reappear as easily if you put very, very light, delicate lines on your paper. So make sure that you're pressing down hard enough to get some nice, bold lines. Next, we will use tempera cake paints to add color to our swirls. It's important that you have a puddle of water to get this paint to work. So you have to keep dipping your brush into your water to get this paint to work. And when your brush is the color of the paint, you'll know that it's ready to start adding to your paper. You're just going to paint in kind of a circular motion on top of all of your swirls. And I would say use colors that you know will mix well or that are kind of similar in order to create really cool and interesting color combinations to your swirls. Just like any other paint, it's really important to rinse very, very well and blot your brush before you switch colors. Remember, you need to add water to this paint in order for it to work. So if you don't see a puddle, you need to dip your brush into your bucket and add more water. And as I said, it's nice to use colors that are kind of similar to create some interesting color combinations on each of your swirls. Every time you switch colors, don't forget, rinse very, very well and add water to those paints if they kind of run out. You want to do this to all of your swirls, and you're going to fill most of your paper with lots of color. There might be a little bit of white peeking through, but for the most part, your paper is going to be filled with really colorful swirls. Once your paper is full of very colorful swirls, go ahead and place it on the drying rack. You'll notice on your table you'll have some different size black paper. The smaller ones are for the buildings, and then the little bit longer one is for the ground, and the colorful paper is for your windows and doors and other details like that. Don't forget when you're gluing to add small dots around the edge of whatever shape you're gluing. Makes it much easier to flip the paper over and stick it down. If you're gluing your ground, you want to make sure to line up that bottom edge of your black ground paper with the edge of your colorful swirls paper, and then gently massage it to get it flattened out. Then you'll add your buildings, which are the little bit shorter pieces of black paper. And I would say you probably have room for 4 of them. If you found a skinnier piece, you could probably squeeze 5 buildings on there if you choose. But lay them out first so that you can determine how they best should line up, and then leave maybe a little bit of space between some of them. You could have them positioned higher and lower on your ground to create different sizes of buildings. Once you've kind of figured out where your buildings are going to go, then you can carefully start adding glue. The same as your ground, you're going to add small dots of glue so that you don't have extra glue squishing out when you're working. If you want, you can even change the shape of your buildings. Here I'm creating kind of a triangle roof. I added a dot in the middle of the top of my paper so I know where to draw my lines to and where to cut. After my pencil lines are on there, just carefully trim. You can create different shapes if you choose, or triangles, or if you prefer the square shape, that's okay too. You could even add chimneys or other details to the silhouettes of your buildings. When your buildings are securely glued down, you're going to use the colorful paper to add windows and doors and other details of your choice. If you're going to create a series of small windows, I would say make a cut of a small strip and then cut that strip into smaller squares. They should probably be about the size of your finger, so if you just put your fingertip on the square, it's a good way to check to see if it's a good size, because you don't want them to be too large, especially if they're windows. And if you're cutting doors, you're probably going to cut a larger rectangle shape. You could do rounded doors. Really, it's up to you what you decide. Just make sure that you kind of place them out before you glue them. And then don't get so many pieces that you won't have time to glue them down. So periodically stop cutting and glue, and then you can return to doing more cutting. So that way you don't lose the pieces while you're working. At cleanup time, place your artwork on the drying rack so the glue can dry.